November 3rd, voters won't just decide the future of our country, they'll also decide the future of our state. Oklahoma House District 81 encompasses parts of both Oklahoma City and Edmond. Joining me now, the two candidates vying for that seat, Republican incumbent Mike Osborne. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning.
And his challenger, Democrat Jacob Backus. Good morning, Mr. Backus.
Good morning.
So, gentlemen, you were previously provided the rules of the debate here. So for everyone at home, we'll let you know how this is going to work. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. Then each candidate will be asked 3 questions with 1 minute to answer each question. I will let them know when their time is up. So after those 3 questions, they will each have a closing statement. So with that being said, let's proceed to the opening statement. Representative Osborne, you won the coin flip before the debate, and you're up first.
Well, thank you very much. I know I speak for Jacob when I say we're thrilled to be here today. I'm honored to be a part of the first one of these mini forums that you all have done this year. I hope there's more, and I hope they're successful. Just real quickly, that the House is the part of state government that is the closest to the people. And with that distinction comes a lot of responsibility, to carry the will of the majority of the people in your district to state government. Also, the responsibility to serve those people with integrity. And I have kind of one overarching goal as your state legislator, and that is to leave this state in a better place on my way out than I found it on the way in. I believe that I'm helping to try to do that. I believe that I'm working toward that goal, and I hope to be able to continue to do that as we move forward here into the new session. So today I'm excited to talk about some of the accomplishments that we've had over the last 4 years, some of the challenges that I see coming up in the future, and some of the good things that I see on the horizon. Thank you again for having us, and I look forward to visiting.
All right, thank you, Representative. Mr. Backus, your opening statement.
Yes, thank you, Jason, and thank you. I'm running for House District 81. I believe we need a representative for all Oklahoma. I have seen firsthand people's needs being ignored. My dad had recently been diagnosed with 2 types of cancer, and my parents found themselves living on undrivable roads, not knowing what to do. So I began to advocate for them. However, their representative told them that they should buy a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get through the muddy road. He told them that they should buy helicopter insurance, and he even went so far as to say, I wish they didn't live in my district so I didn't have to deal with this problem. Time that we had a change in Oklahoma of leadership that is going to look out for every single Oklahoman and listen to every single voice, because your voice does matter. I was able to work across party lines and demographics in order to get this road fixed and a mission accomplished. And now I want to do that for you in the state legislature.
All right, Mr. Backus, thank you very much. Let's start with the first question here. That goes to you, Mr. Backus. Oklahoma ended the fiscal year with a major budget shortfall, is facing another shortfall, likely even bigger next year. How much would you want to lean on state savings to reduce that gap there? And then also, how much do you think that cuts here, budget cuts, are inevitable when it comes to next year?
Well, obviously, we don't want budget cuts to have to take place. But what we do need to do is we need to invest in our small businesses because they're still suffering. What we do need in our state is more entrepreneurs who are willing to invest in us, but we have to invest in them right now while they're struggling through this pandemic. We have to give Oklahomans our support because they're working too hard for us not to give them that. Our state has to prioritize the recovery of our small businesses, and we have to prioritize our schools. Our budget has to prioritize what we think is important in our state, which includes our state employees, which is teachers, those members of the core services. And we can't give up on our Oklahomans now, so we need to do whatever we can to support them in the best way possible.
All right, same question for you, Representative. Oklahoma ended the fiscal year with a major budget shortfall, is facing another shortfall, likely even bigger next year. How much would you lean on state savings to close that gap, and is reducing spending to deal with the deficit here inevitable?
Well, since I took office in 2016, we have faced multiple tough budgets. The one exception was actually last year, when or the year before, actually, when we had quite a surplus. But I'm proud of the leadership and the foresight that we had to create the largest rainy day fund in history to help, offset some of those shortfalls from last time. We are clearly going to have to lean on that again. And while we continue to face economic problems and other things in this state, we need to remember that that in light of COVID, my constituents know that I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and get to work on the tough issues. And there are going to be some tough decisions that we're going to have to make this year. And so I hope we can all band together and make those decisions.
Representative Osborne, thank you very much. And you mentioned COVID there. Let's get into this next question. As we head into the end of the year here, hospitalizations in Oklahoma are at an all-time high. State health officials announced a stage 3 hospital surge plan due to the virus here. Overall, coronavirus cases are on the rise. What needs to be done here in Oklahoma to get the pandemic under control? And specifically, another question here, do you support a statewide mask mandate?
That's a very good question. I honestly believe that we're working toward coming out of this. And while I wear masks, we wear masks in public. My family wears masks in public. But I also believe that wearing masks is important to stop this pandemic. On the other hand, I do understand the hesitation of government to mandate those masks statewide, and I think what we need to do is just take some personal responsibility here, and we don't need to lean on the government to tell us what the right thing to do is. What we need to do is take personal responsibility and wear masks when we're in public, and do the right thing and stop this pandemic.
All right, Representative, thank you. And Mr. Backus, same question for you. I'll repeat it once again as we head into the end of the year. Hospitalizations in Oklahoma at an all-time high. State health officials announcing a stage 3 hospital surge plan due to the virus. Coronavirus cases on the rise here. What needs to be done to get the pandemic under control? And do you support a statewide mask mandate?
Well, what we need to continue to do, obviously, is put people first during this. Continue to be prepared, and we need to continue to work for our economic security. As you mentioned, our numbers are rising, and we are currently experiencing something like we've never seen. This crisis is urgent, and we don't have time for short-sighted fixes. And that's why I'm running. We don't need politicians who are not just all that bad. We need long-sighted fixes and long-term answers for this problem, because if it happens again, what we've had in the past is not working for us. COVID-19 is clearly a public health emergency and a continuing threat to Oklahoma's economy, as I mentioned. That being said, though, we need to take actions to keep Oklahomans healthy and our economy strong. The response of our current government wasn't to do that. When we first heard about the virus, Oklahoma's leadership didn't take CDC guidelines seriously. Oklahoma's leadership didn't take doctors and physicians' guidelines seriously. What we needed was a mask mandate back when we didn't know what to do. But the leadership didn't provide those answers for us then, and they still are not providing those answers for us now. Our current leadership just seems to fall in line with the rhetoric and the scare tactics. We need masks now to protect everyone in our state, including children, our teachers, our professional healthcare workers, and everyone.
Mr. Backus.
collaboration and creative thinking.
All right, yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Backus. Ran out of time there. Let's go to the final question here, and this one starts with you, Mr. Backus. Racial justice protests. It was one of the stories this year across the country and in Oklahoma. Thousands taking to the streets demanding change. As a lawmaker, how will you approach your constituents' concerns about law enforcement and systemic racism?
Well, the most important thing to do is listen, hear what people's concerns are. We saw what people's concerns were when they stood up for what they believed was right and did protests and shared their points of view with us. But now we have to listen. They brought many important things into the light for us. They reminded us that Oklahoma has a 25% population of people. However, 50% of Oklahoma's population of incarcerated folks are people of color. That's a huge disparity that's not okay for our state. And we have to do better. One way we can start doing better is to vote yes on state question 5, but we have to go further. We have to make a point of what we're going to do to build relationships between our communities and our police officers. We have to get serious about providing opportunity for rehabilitation, and we have to provide preventative justice, or rather we have to legislate preventative justice over incarceration, because all those kinds of choices are the choices that are affecting Oklahomans now and every day. And I will stand up for those Oklahomans in those situations by creating laws that help them in this systemic racism.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Backus. And Representative Osborne, same question for you. Racial justice protests swept across the country in Oklahoma this past summer, with thousands taking to the streets demanding change. As a lawmaker, how will you approach your constituents' concerns about law enforcement and systemic racism?
Well, thank you for the question. Let me start out by saying that what happened to George Floyd and other people in this country is grotesque and should not happen in America. To be honest with you, I'm not afraid to say that I don't have all the answers. But what I have done is teamed up with an African American Democrat from Tulsa, and he and I and 2 senators, one from here in Edmond and one from Tulsa. We all did an interim study a couple of weeks ago to discuss just these issues. It was a bipartisan, bicameral study of these issues, basically just to get the conversation started and to continue the conversation here in Oklahoma, because these are conversations that we cannot be afraid to have on either side, from either party, on either side of this issue. We all have to be able to sit down and respectfully discuss how to end racism in America, because to be honest, it's here, it's alive and well, and we need to stop it right now.
All right, Representative Osborne, thank you very much. That ends the question portion of the debate here. Let's get into the closing statements. Representative Osborne, you had the opening statement, and you can begin the closing statements here.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I want to point out that there's a lot of good going on in Oklahoma right now, and we have done a lot of good over the last 4 years. We crafted and passed the largest teacher pay increase and the largest education budget, actually 2 years in a row, several years ago. We created a $1 billion savings account over the loud objection of some members of the minority party that literally has bailed us out of financial ruin due to COVID and the economic downturn that we are having here in Oklahoma. Again, partnered with an African American Democrat from Tulsa to continue the conversation about race in a bipartisan fashion here. That isn't status quo. That is leadership, and I continue to lead just like that, or I intend to continue to lead just like that as long as I am your state representative. I have a sign in my office that says, It's not about you. And I hang it right in my line of sight every day to remind me that the people of Edmond and North Oklahoma City sent me there to work for them and to advocate for them and to represent them, not to climb ladders, not to play politics, not to point fingers, but to work for them. And I intend to continue to do that. Thank you very much for having us today.
All right, Representative. And Mr. Backus, your closing statement.
When it comes to racial justice, discussions aren't enough. Action is required. We need a leadership and a leader who is going to be willing to take those actions and make those tough decisions. And I will be a representative that will listen to and advocate. I have been to each and every neighborhood in this district. I have knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, and I've heard what you've had to say. You're tired of all the heat that you want a common sense leader who is willing to go to bat for you when it really matters. My opponent has been in the legislature for 4 years, and he has towed the party line. He has voted yes on almost every single issue. And on the really tough issues, he chose not to vote at all. My question is that the kind of leadership you want? Or do you want a leader who will listen to your voice? Because your voice does matter. Do you want a leader who will explain to you the decisions he made when he made a vote and why he may or may not have voted a particular way? On election day, voters, you have a choice. I believe I'm the best choice because I am willing to do what is best for you, the people, and not play the games down at the state capitol. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Jason and KOC.
All right, that ends the debate here. Representative Mike Osborne, Jacob Backus, thank you both for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate it.